So, hey guys, filtering over from Jenny's talk on the impact stage. Andy is here with us right now. We're just fixing a small technical issue. I know you may be asking yourself, do I do that every time? No, I don't say that every time, but we will start it very, very shortly. Really happy to have Andy here with us at Techsylvania. So, Andy is the COO and co-founder at C-Star Provisions, is an experienced e-commerce leader with proven success representing several different brands, from fast-scaling startups to enterprise-level companies such as Proactive. He is currently the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of C-Star Provisions, a high-end direct-to-consumer meat snacks company, launching in late 2018 with a highly successful crowdfunding campaign. C-Star's American Wagyu beef jerky was the most popular food product in the world at that time on Kickstarter. He served as chief of staff at BV, one of the world's largest Shopify implementation partners, where he facilitated the agency's international expansion into Latin America and the Asian Pacific. And he also held the position as director at Chillest Capital. I like that name. Direct-to-consumer brand incubator that specializes in consumer packaged goods, leveraging best-in-class retail technology. Andy has demonstrated success in developing winning strategies and brand positioning across all phases, from creation to implementation. His passion lies in driving innovation and growth within organizations looking to adapt to the ever-changing digital world. And he will be speaking very shortly. Oh, you're here.
Can you see me?
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Awesome. What a morning. Thank you for that introduction, Trevor. That was
so. I'm almost
awesome.
Done.
Yes, keep going. Sorry.
I'm so pumped you're here. Speaking today on hacking the e-commerce equation, finding synergy through a global framework, optimizing your team, and removing barriers to entry. Please welcome Andy Muntean to the impact stage at Techsylvania 2020.
Well, again, thank you, Trevor. That was amazing. I apologize. Slight delay here. I suffered a power outage, which kicked my internet offline, and so that was terrible timing, but kind of in line with the entire year of 2020 here, and as we kind of navigate these uncertainties from a technological standpoint, I appreciate your patience. I do have some slides to share with everybody. I'm trying to pull those up, but to be quite honest with you, they are very basic, and so I could probably speak to them if I can't get them to pull up at the moment. But first things first, if you were wondering, my name is very, very Romanian. My father's side of the family actually still lives about an hour away from Cluj, and so that was a very exciting thing for me growing up, born and raised in the United States, to have the opportunity to join this talk with Techsylvania and so many people that are in Romania. It's a very, very exciting and proud moment for me. But I was kind of hoping to be in Romania this year, but we'll aim for next year, and we'll have tons of beers together, and we'll all become best friends. So I'm excited. Hold on, what's that? Oh, I'm not allowed to say that. Sorry, I'm not allowed to say that, but I promise I'd be on my best behavior today. So far, I'm not living up to that. But regardless, really happy to be here. Anyways, the goals for my talk today, one is to inspire. I think that I have taken a pretty unconventional path for my professional career, and to be able to share that with other budding entrepreneurs and people within the e-commerce space is something that I always enjoy doing. It hasn't always been a smooth road, but I have done some pretty awesome things in my opinion, that it has led to an awesome quality of life. The second thing I want to do is teach. I think that there's definitely some insight that I can provide. At the end of the day, I'm still a student of e-commerce, and I always will be. I learn every day. I learn something new, and I'm sure that in our conversation, and the idea is that we'll have a small QA at the end. I know we've run over a little bit of time here, but hopefully I can learn from some of you folks. But then, at the end of the day, the last piece of my goal for this talk is to have fun. And so we're in weird times. I was kind of expecting to be on a stage, and here I am in my home in Salt Lake City, Utah. So if you guys could just throw in where you're at in the chat, I'd love to see. I'm going to be watching the chat this entire conversation to see if you guys have questions. Throw them in there. There's no bad questions. There's no dumb questions. And if you want to correct me on something, please do. I want that. It's always good to grow and learn. So hit the chat. Tell me where you're at. London, UK. I see some rolling in here. So that's really, really awesome. To get started here, I lost everything on my computer, but that's okay. The first starting point was from an e-commerce perspective, and this is something that shocked me. And it's just part of everyday life for me and for a lot of people. Bulgaria, we got Cluj, we got more Romania. That's awesome. So glad you guys are here. Amazon started 25 years ago. That blew my mind when I really thought about it. 25 years ago, e-commerce is no longer in its infancy. We are in a place now where it's very, very commonplace, and that's global. Of course, it's still growing in a lot of places. And one of my positions that I had, actually in the last 5 years, I worked for an agency, as Trevor mentioned, called BV Excel here in the United States. It was in San Diego, actually, and we're the largest Shopify implementation partner in the world. I was tasked with expanding globally. And part of that was finding those markets that were still blue ocean opportunities, one from a talent perspective, but also, from a brand perspective and direct to consumer perspective, and how can we sell things online perspective. So my first targets were, one, Latin America. And so we opened an office in Tijuana, Mexico. And, we had some of the best talented developers that I've ever, worked with come out of that. But then the larger opportunity that I saw was through Asia Pacific. And so we opened an office in Melbourne, Australia. At that point, Australia was about 5 years behind the United States from an e-commerce perspective. From a technology perspective, that kind of shortens it to about two and a half years. And now that we're in this new phase of, the stay-at-home era, that has accelerated, beyond where we could even imagine. It's been exponential. And so that's been a really exciting thing for me to see. I think, we're starting to also see from a direct consumer perspective, the way that we interact with customers changed drastically. I'm actually helping build a piece of consumer retail technology right now, and it allows us to text message with our customers. And I'm sure that some people, that are here right now have had a text message from a brand come in, and it might be announcing a promotion, or maybe they're releasing a new product, or maybe there's one of their products is back in stock, and just kind of seeing the flexibility and the intricacies that we're building into this platform, and how we acquire, but ultimately market to and interact with these customers with this technology, kind of shows how deeply we're thinking about consumer behavior. It's incredible, and we're going to talk more later, or in a couple minutes, about building these relationships and leveraging these profitable marketing channels. But I think the main takeaway here is that we have gotten to a point in e-commerce and especially marketing on a global scale where it's very, very detailed. It's very intense from a strategy standpoint. We're past the days of just throwing up a website and driving some Facebook traffic to it. Those days are far beyond us, or far behind us, I suppose. And so we need to start thinking about, okay, what does this look like? One, from a tech stack, what are we using to promote our e-commerce stores? Also, what are we using from a user experience standpoint to make those stores, to give us the deepest analytics possible? Oh, and by the way, I do like to tell jokes, and I would say that in a typical atmosphere, I'll be on stage and I could get feedback from the audience, but at this at this point, I can't do that. And so if you want to boo me in the comments or clap for me in the comments, that's fine. I definitely welcome that. But it's tough to get a read at this point, and it's one of those things that we're going to learn and work through with this new normal. But either way. Anyways, to kind of circle back, and I wish I had slides because it would make this a lot easier, but for some reason I just can't get them to pull up right now. I have a high-end meat snacks company, and beef jerky is not technology. And I kind of wish that I had that printed on a T-shirt because I think people would buy it. But beef jerky inherently is a consumable. However, the way that I sell it and then I get it into people's hands leverages a very, very in-depth tech stack. And so I want to talk a little bit about that and what that tech stack looks like. I know that this is more of a technical conversation that we're having here as a session. It's kind of a workshop, and we're going to have that Q&A where people can ask those questions. And I'm not going to get too in depth on what we talk about, just because we are limited on time. But I open the opportunity to connect after this call or this talk on a call, email, LinkedIn, any of those places. If we want to talk more in depth about any of these things, please leverage that opportunity. I would love to get one more global perspective, since I see that people are from all over the world here, but also just, talking shop. This is something that I could go on for hours and hours on. And I think that that's the most exciting thing. But anyways, from a tech stack perspective, for a consumer product, you really have to think about, one, how you're optimizing conversion. Two, how you're letting people know that items are back in stock. There are just a number of different ways. I've got something, someone's popping in here. What's up, guys? Sorry, a little bit more technical issues on my end, apparently. But anyways, okay, so let's, where was I at? Let's talk about the tech stack, but let's back into that. Let's back into that first. Let's look at the pillars of e-commerce as I see them. And there's three pillars. Let's look at acquisition. And so that'd be acquiring new customers, conversion, getting those customers that you've brought to your store to convert, and then retention. And that would be, how do we retain these customers to, one, increase the lifetime value of them, because that's an incredibly important metric. But also, how do we get that average order value up? And so from an acquisition standpoint, let's look at digital. And so this could be, paid media. And this is things that everyone's probably very familiar with. And that would be Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Twitter ads, Snapchat, any different kinds of influencers, whether they're paid or unpaid. Display, and display would be the ads that you see on the top of your screen or your browser window. Native ads, and these native ads would live within content that you're consuming. SEO, very, very important one. And I think that we can tie back to that. And one of the points that I had in my slides were the buzzwords in my title. And so let's take a little bit of sidebar here. In my title of this talk, we are talking about building the global frameworks, eliminating barriers to entry, hacking e-commerce. And these are all things that, one, they have brought you to my talk right now because they were interesting. And what is this guy talking about? What does hacking e-commerce mean? What does what does removing barriers to entry mean? What does building a global framework mean? These are all things that, one, they would tie into to SEO. And so now all of a sudden you're entering these keywords, people are searching for them, and you're showing up. Whether that's from a blog post, maybe you write a blog post and you place a pixel on that site, and you can start retargeting everyone that saw that as warm traffic, because they know, or that they were interested in that topic. And they were there for a reason. If we can start driving traffic to that I think, we're going to have a better chance for those conversions to happen. Let's continue to work down it. So traditional advertising methods, and this goes back to acquisition. How are we acquiring these customers? We've got radio and we've got podcast ads. Podcasts are the biggest thing going here. I know that quite a few of the speakers that are here at Techsylvania this week are very accomplished podcasters. Let's look at Kara Swisher. She is one of my biggest idols. I've been listening to Kara for the last 10 years, and so to be able to speak at a conference with her is kind of surreal. But that's neither here nor there. We can get down to billboards. We can get down to bench ads. Anything that's going to be driving awareness for this brand as part of the sales funnel, we can then pump paid media towards, retarget them, and then ultimately push them through to a conversion. Another piece of this would be product giveaways, maybe PR. So you're going to put out press releases about, is it a partnership that you've built with a company? Is it something that you're teamed up with a charity? There's lots of different ways that we can start driving this traffic from an acquisition standpoint, but then we need to really start focusing on, the conversion. And this is where the hacking of e-commerce really comes into play. One of my favorite things to do is test. Testing is the name of the game in e-commerce now. As I mentioned before, you can't just throw up a product on the internet and drive some arbitrary traffic to it and expect to see any sort of conversion that really works. You have to test what you're putting onto that page. And is that your product description? Are you testing your FAQ? Are you answering the questions that people really have about your product? Do you have an about page? Do you have a blog? Does this content exist for people to consume to really get close to your brand, but then build that trust? And I think in this post-COVID world, as we see this explosion of e-commerce traffic and sales, we're starting to understand that people want to see something that they can trust, and they want to see something that they can relate to, and they want to kind of build that relationship with the brand. And so a lot of that comes back to what is the content on your website, what is accessible to them, but then as a larger piece, as a brand, are you available to the customer or the consumer to have a conversation? And so this is the kind of another buzzword I would say is conversational commerce. And so that would be chatbots. And then a lot of this is going in the artificial intelligence direction, where we have different pieces of AI that can respond based on the intent of the customer. But let's look at it at more of a ground level perspective, and that's having customer success people on your team, customer service people on your team that know your product and know your brand. And I'm going to get to building the team here in a second, but I want to kind of stress on the importance of having that in-house person that does know it and can discuss different pieces of your product, whether it's a piece of technology, whether you're a SaaS platform, whether you're a consumable product like beef jerky. If you have the ability to articulate through that customer success person the details of your product, and then also answer any questions that they have, that is just absolutely essential. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier about the platform that I'm building right now for SMS marketing. It's a very intimate relationship that you have with the customer, as opposed to email, which everyone is very accustomed to. But the thing that really helps would be the one engagement. And so 99% of people open those text messages within 3 minutes of receiving it. Email has a 20% open rate. And how that works from a timing perspective, it can carry. I probably have 13 emails right now in my inbox that have come in over the last 4 days from brands that I haven't opened yet, but I probably will, or I would have deleted them already. Text message marketing is an immediate ROI, and so that's why it's something that's so exciting to me. But the thing that's more exciting to me about it is the fact that it is that intimate relationship between the brand and the customer. And I typically text my friends and I text my family, And if I can build that relationship with a customer as a brand where I'm texting them, you're building a lifetime value from that customer, but you're also building that rapport for referrals as well as positive reviews and things like that. And so I think those are super, super important. And that kind of touches on the last pillar, which was retention. I'm trying to look at the time here. I know that this has been a little bit unconventional today, unfortunately, but I'm not sure if we want to take some questions regarding building teams or scaling e-commerce or customer success, anything like that. If we want to start taking questions, I know that Trevor is bouncing around. So if you have any questions you want to put in the chat right now, we can kind of discuss those at this point. Any questions? Okay, so I have a question, and I appreciate that. So the question is, how are you keeping remote teams motivated? I think that this is an incredibly important question. One, we're still trying to figure out how managing remote teams truly works, and so one of the things that I do is I've implemented a policy, and most of my remote workers are software engineers. And so how do we get them to, one, buy into the culture that we're establishing in the United States, especially, and my team is in Poland. I also have a team in El Salvador as well. How do I keep them involved? And so one of those is a daily team meeting in the morning, and it's very quick. And this would be part of the project management system known as Scrum, and that would be the daily stand-up. And so we discuss, what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? And what are the roadblocks that you're facing? And so both of those, or all three of those topics that we discuss on a daily basis, and obviously we have to work with time zones, those kind of bring that to light. But I think if you have a product and you have a good platform and it's performing well and you're rewarding your team for that, I think that motivation comes naturally.
Hey, Andy, I'm back.
Hey, Trevor.
So everything's going okay?
Yeah, everything's going great. We're just taking some questions now from the listeners. I know that we're probably a little bit over time, and I don't want to throw off the schedule completely.
Oh, it's okay.
But,
we can do a few minutes here of questions for sure.
Okay, cool.
We're a bit late. If anyone has anything, please write in the chat. In the meantime, I do have a couple questions. I apologize
cool.
if you asked, but answer these. Where are your products located in stores in the United States?
So I think, well, this is a really good question. So first and foremost, as a premium meat snack product, we had to make the decision to not put them in traditional retail, like grocery stores or, what would be the closest example in Romania or Eastern Europe? But
like a
beef jerky
or Auchan.
Okay, yeah, and so in the United States, I think one of the largest suppliers of premium meat snacks or just meat snacks in general would be gas stations. And so we have elected to not go that direction just to protect our brand. We also have a very expensive product. And so that's one of the things that's really interesting is how it's priced really dictates where it goes. Yeah. And so our product lives in wineries mostly as part of the gift shop. We also are in select breweries. But the majority of our business really comes from direct to consumer and e-commerce online. Okay. And so we have to focus, I would say 80 to 90% of our efforts to driving online traffic to selling the product.
Okay. And is cstarprovisions.com, is that the website? Or
it's shopcstar.com.
Shopcstar.com. Right. Cool. I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
I'm going to get some. If they ship to Cincinnati, I'm going to try it out.
They do ship to Cincinnati. And I think one of the interesting things about the brand is that we started it with a Kickstarter. And you had mentioned that as part of my intro, and it was a highly successful Kickstarter for a number of reasons. And I know this isn't a crowdfunding chat. Happy to talk with anybody about crowdfunding because I do have a lot of knowledge on that. But building this brand was Well, one, very easy from the perspective of that the restaurant already existed. And so this was a very high-end restaurant in downtown San Diego, California. They specialized in only the best meats and steaks available. And so I went into this restaurant as a regular, just at the bar, and I tried it one day as a snack, and I said, "Holy shit, guys! Sorry, I didn't mean to swear. This is this is an incredible product. We should take this to market and see what kind of traction we can get." And so we took it to Kickstarter, and we did a lot of outside marketing, and that would have been mostly organic. So reaching out to influencers in the area and reaching out to people on the Food Network. And so we had a lot of celebrity chefs kind of promote it. And it was mostly relationship built, to be honest with you. But we ended up selling into 15 countries across the world, raised over $50,000 within the first 2 weeks, and really saw it as a huge success to kickstarting, no pun intended, the brand.
Yeah, cool. And then I'm sure you probably already answered this, but where do you source your beef from?
So our beef is, and this is a really, really important one as well, and it's a great question because it's part of our brand. And our brand only uses the best materials. It only uses the best ingredients. It only uses the best beef. And so we source our Wagyu from Snake River Farms, which is located in Idaho, here in the United States. And it was one of the really important pieces of it to me is that I went to see where this meat and where the cattle were held and how it was processed to make sure that it was a humanely managed product. And so I got to see the entire process from the cattle being raised to the point where it was being packaged and sent, and making sure that I did my due diligence on that was of utmost importance to me and the brand. So
yeah, awesome. Yeah, because it is really important, where you source your meat from. One of the cool things about Romania is you get so much organic chicken and whatever you grow,
yes,
pig, for virtually little cost, because everyone's doing it and it tastes so good. And
yep. And that's there's a humanitarian aspect and an ethical aspect to it, but at the end of the day, it just tastes better when it's humanely managed.
Yeah, it is.
So and that's important. So
Maria had a quick question. You work with software engineers. Do you adjust to them, or do you make them adjust to your specific company environment? And how does that relationship work when you're bringing them in?
Yeah, totally. And so typically, I have a very strict process for how we execute upon software development. And that is part of my vetting process when I'm looking to hire a software developer. And so if they kind of fit that persona, which they often do, and it ultimately comes down to the skill level. But I wouldn't hire somebody that didn't kind of fit into the process that we already had in place. I think that putting a square peg in a round hole just never works, no matter what. So
completely agree. I think culture is important. Probably one of the most important things at any successful company.
Yeah.
So Radu asks, why don't you ship outside North America?
Phenomenal question. Well, one of the reasons is, and we faced this with the Kickstarter, and I think that we had a little bit of insight from that. A lot of countries have restrictions on beef import. And so we have been kind of establishing our base in the United States and Canada, trying to understand what our target market and who we're really trying to market to and sell to. But we also are working on understanding, one, what that international supply chain looks like and how we can provide it to our international customers in a timely manner. And that's one of the things about building an internationally, diverse brand is building that supply chain, understanding what the infrastructure looks like across the world. And it doesn't look the same everywhere. And trying to really build that. And one of the things that we're working on right now is kind of leveraging our resources and trying to network as much as possible and build those relationships with the folks that do have those connections to understand, okay, this is what we need to do to, one, be compliant with import laws, but also manage it from a cost perspective and not be losing out on margin because we're paying exorbitant prices to ship the product.
Do you happen to know what restrictions the EU has on U.S. beef that come through?
So the EU is not an issue. We have had a lot of success to shipping to the EU from the United States and our shipping partner here. I think that what it comes down to is figuring out how do we do it from a cost perspective.
Perfect, man. And so Radu had a quick follow-up, and he asked, did you think about, or have you thought about local branding, local products based on locally sourced beef, but at the same quality?
Would this be, Radu, I see your question. Also, I appreciate you. I would ask if you are referring to locally international, or is that more just locally here in the United States where we're shipping?
I think it's almost like a franchise type thing where they use the Star brand, but the beef is sourced from, like, let's say Cluj, Romania.
Totally.
You know? Yeah,
and that's actually a really good point. And I'm glad that you brought that up because that would solve a lot of the supply chain issues, I think, is if we are sourcing that from a local herd, and we do have a processing plant that can get the product to the point where it's comparable to what we're producing elsewhere. That would solve a lot of those immediate problems, and also, from a branding perspective, provide that product to locals, and they know where it's coming from, they know where it's sourced from, and they have confidence in it.
And what would be the challenges to keep the standards up with different differently sourced locations?
So here in the United States, we are under the thumb of the USDA, and so that's the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and they have a very, very stringent rules as to what the environment is that the animals are raised in, as well as what the environment that the product is processed in. And so being able to find that internationally, could be a challenge. And so is it because it's a lesser quality in some parts of the world, or is it because it's just a completely different ball game? We have to think about that and bringing a similar product to market.
Well, I really appreciate you sticking with us after the power outage at the beginning.
Sorry about that. And I lost my slides and everything. And so I was kind of shooting from the hip there, guys. I apologize.
No, we really appreciate it, man. And thank you so much for answering some questions at the end. We really hope to see you in person next year in Cluj.
Absolutely. Yeah. And give me an opportunity to visit my family as well.
Awesome. Nice to meet you.
Radu, nice to meet you too. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Radu here. Let's connect offline, and if you have any more questions, shoot them over to me in a private message so we can continue the conversation there. And that goes for everybody.
You're the man, Radu. All right, see you guys.
See you guys. Thank you.